My next guest I had the privilege to sit down with is a South Asian trans mass queer content creator and activist. And he believes that to elevate gender inclusivity, all we need is to research, educate, and advocate. So he also talked about in this episode about being trans mass organizer and activist during the times of a lot of anti-trans rhetoric and violence and how to prevent and how we can take action during the next 4 years. And so, listen to this. He also believes that by discussing and creating discourse in an intersectional way, rather than a white cis rooted way, we can not only liberate ourselves, but liberate our communities. And so, towards the end of this interview, he talked a lot about what it means and what it means specifically for him and why he believes that. So, this is a really great episode. I hope that you enjoy.
Dem Bois, yeah. Dem Bois, amplifying, transmitting color voices, yeah, we here making noise, yeah. Making noise, yeah. Visibility equals possibility, you know we them boys, yeah. Them boys, yeah. Amplifying, transmitting.
Welcome to Dem Bois Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Aaron. My next guest is a South Asian trans mass queer content creator and activist. They are passionate about addressing the intersection of racial justice, LGBTQIA plus rights. He believes that to elevate gender inclusivity, all we need is to research, educate, and advocate. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited to be a part of this conversation and this space.
Yes, I'm so glad to have you here. So you mind going ahead and introducing yourself for folks who are listening, name and pronouns?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. My name is Nat Moghe, and my pronouns are they, he.
Nat, where are you located currently?
Yeah, I'm currently in New York City in Queens. That I moved here actually in the beginning of 2024, and it's been the greatest decision of my life.
Wow, the greatest decision of your life in just short, almost a year actually. And so, what
Right.
what brought you to New York?
Yeah, so I went to university. I grew up in the Jersey Shore area, which is a very fun area to be in, but there is a lot of like racism, transphobia, and homophobia that I grew up with. So I decided that I wanted to go to school in Pittsburgh, 6.5 hours away. So I lived there for 5 years, and after I graduated, I ended up having to move back to Jersey. And moving back to the Jersey Shore, after transitioning, when I was in Pittsburgh, I had a very, very supportive community over there. Um, it was a really, really hard place to be in. Just from, the former high school that I went to, passing anti-trans policies throughout the schools, or just hearing, the parents have the right to know, hearing all of these parents campaign, it really, really had an impact on my mental health. And I feel like it kind of sent my mental health backwards a little bit, and even like my connection to myself and my transness. So I always knew that I wanted to end up in New York City, since I was like 4. I've always known like that's the place to be for me. And my sister, she just had her nephew last year, and during the last month of her pregnancy, I didn't want her to be alone, so I ended up moving into her apartment with her. She lived in Queens, and I cared for her, took her to the delivery room. Baby was born very healthy, and I ended up taking over her apartment in Queens, and she moved back to Jersey with my mom so she could have help raising the baby. So that's how I ended up in New York City, and it's been really like a life changer for me. Like I said, like when I was in Jersey, I felt my mental health severely decline. And since I've been in New York, just the amount of like community that I've been able to connect to, like whether that be through like social events, or I went to an LGBTQ boxing place called Outbox on Monday, and I would literally like walked out of there like with the biggest smile on my face, just not only because of boxing, but like meeting people in community. So yeah, that's why I say moving to New York City was the best decision of my life.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm glad that you're finding a place to call home, and that, because it don't matter where you are. If your mental health is being affected by where you live and where you work, you should reconsider whether you should be there or not, right? And
Right.
of course, people stay for different reasons, and people leave for different reasons, right? But if you can, and you move to a place, and you could, right?
Mhm.
I'm glad that that's turning around for you. And I guess it's just a misconception because people think of the East Coast or the Northeast as being this liberal place, but to know that the Jersey Shore is just not trans friendly, it's kind of shocking to me.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. I mean, even I grew up like, going to the beach like almost every day during the summertime. And when I moved back to Jersey, like I only went to the beach like twice maybe over the summer because me after getting top surgery, I'm like very, very proud of like my chest and my scars. But going to the beach in Jersey, like you very, very obviously, get a lot of stares. And usually like I'm the type of person where I'm very, very proud of my transness and I like to show it, but being surrounded by that definitely has an impact on you. So that's like what I experienced in Jersey. And even when I was in high school, the high school that I went to, I when I was identifying, pre-transition, I was identifying as a woman. I went to prom with someone of the same sex, and they actually made me sign a contract saying that I wouldn't show physical affection to protect me from bullying, which this making me sign the contract in itself is not okay. And in my opinion, bullying. So yeah, that's kind of the Jersey Shore. I mean, it's yeah, it's a fun place to party and to go to the beach once in a while, but um it also showed me like if I ever want to like raise a family one day, like I want to make sure I'm raising my family in community, and with people who celebrate others' identities.
I'm so sorry you had to experience that. Like, going to a prom is supposed to be like a joyous moment, right? And just like you said, when you said that, I was thinking to myself, that's bullying within itself, right? Instead of
Right.
protecting a student from bullies, because kids gonna bully kids. That's just something that kids do, which they shouldn't. But it's like, instead of protecting and educating children on not bullying, and the consequences from bullying, you're gonna just tell somebody to suppress who they are and who they're with in order to
Right.
what, right? That's sad, actually. I'm sorry you had to experience
Yeah, and
that.
that's why like, I there's like I have so much concern, like especially like for our trans youth like right now. You know, especially like with like the new administration coming in, you could even see like the impact after like election day, like I'm pretty sure like the trans lifeline like calls went up by 600%. That is like an insanely massive number. And so like just reflecting on the experiences I had growing up as a trans queer kid in an area that was not supportive to our community. Yeah, I get like really, really concerned like for our trans youth, whether that be in Jersey or just nationwide or worldwide in itself. And that's why I think it's like important. Um, you know, I think that our trans elders paved the way for our liberation, and I think that it's our turn to pave the way for the liberation of our youth and our future generations of trans folks.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And you experienced transphobia and all of that within Jersey Shore. How was it, your experience when you went home with your family?
Yeah. So home is a Jersey Shore, but I've actually in New York City, although I, have said that I haven't met a lot of community, I have actually experienced like a lot more. in-person transphobia, like specifically when it comes to like my name and how I look on like my identification cards. And yeah, I've had experiences like I'm a, a person who's living paycheck to paycheck right now. It's expensive to live in New York City, and I'm working at a nonprofit. And I had to like sell my chain one day to make rent, and I went into this jewelry shop, and the guy looked at my ID before, counting my cash, and he slowly started counting my cash for like 10 minutes. And this shop, you have to be like buzzed out of the shop to leave. So I was trapped in the shop too. And he was asking me, so what do you put in your body? You guys weren't accepted years ago. And, like just like going off, and like this is stuff that I have experienced like a lot, specifically when people are looking at my ID. Like even on a business trip in New Orleans, I love New Orleans. I had like the best time there. And me and my work friends were bar hopping one night, and we got to a bar, and usually I have to explain I'm trans when people look at my ID. And when I said that I was trans, the security guard told me, I don't care what you are, you need to get out of here right now. And these experiences, like yeah, like even though like I'm an activist, I'm an organizer, I try to like uplift like positivity and like, uplift like my trans siblings. Like these experiences itself like have definitely like had an impact on me, on my mental health, on my existence as like a trans person too. It's not going to stop me from existing. I'm never going to stop existing as a trans person, but it's definitely had an impact. So it's I feel like yeah, like even in areas which are like safe states, like considered to be safe states, there's a lot of violence happening, whether it be like verbally or physically.
It's a really good point to make. And even here, I'm in California, and people think, oh, California is this liberal place too. But there are the
Mm.
pockets, right? And people say, slick things and or treat you in a certain type of way. I try when I go into places, I try to lead with well, it's I think it's different also because now the way I look now reflects on my ID. But it's been many years, right? I transitioned 11 years ago, medically transitioned 11 years ago. But before it wasn't always like that, right? My name wasn't changed, my gender marker wasn't changed. So I have experienced those things, and you think that you in California, you're in the Bay Area, it's safe. No, you know, I want to say ignorance because that's what it is, right? To treat another person less than is ignorant to me, and that travels anywhere you go, right? And no matter if it's a liberal state, it's considered a safe state or whatever, right? People don't know how to treat people with respect, and it's sad, right? And I'm sorry you had to
Right.
experience that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And yeah, that's why I think like building like care networks and building communities like so like vital to like our survival as trans people. And like when people are in like areas that are not safe states and are in areas that are blocking HRT for youth, and so on and so forth, it's harder for them to find those networks and find those communities. So yeah, that's why like even through like my T Advocate account, like I try to like uplift nationwide networks, whether that be like relocation services. Like there's this one relocation service. It's not a relocation service actually, so it's called Expanded Access. I tell everyone about this, and it's like they have like about like 600 volunteer pilots who will fly people like out of state to get the care that they need, like whether that be gender affirming care or abortion, like free flights. And it's like these types of networks that literally can change a person's life. Like even like mutual aid changed my life. Mutual aid is the reason that I was able to get top surgery. When I got top surgery, I'm like over 3 years post-op now, and I had Blue Cross Blue Shield at the time, and it was not covered by insurance at the time. It was just considered a cosmetic procedure. So I had to pay out of pocket, and I posted my GoFundMe. When I posted my GoFundMe, it was like a winner and a loss. So like I built community. I was able to like raise that $8,500 within the span of 2 weeks, which was just mind blowing to me. Um, at the same time, when I released my GoFundMe, I'm lucky to have like my mom, my dad, and my sister who support me. But my mom's side of the family, once they found out that I was trans, these people who were like my cousins, my aunts and my uncles, they just completely disowned me. So that's like a moment that really showed me like the importance and like the value of like chosen family, like especially when it comes to like trans folks. Like I consider like everyone who helped me get this chest to be my community and to be my chosen family, because they did change my life in an incredible way. Um, and yeah, I think it's also like important to acknowledge through all of that, like the grief that trans folks go through as well. Like when a lot of us will, like some of us are really lucky. We have like I'm very lucky. I'm South Asian, and trans people have existed in South Asian culture for centuries. There's the Hijras, and they were once hailed as godlike, and the caste system pushed them out. They still exist to this day, and but in my culture, trans folks aren't as visible or as accepted by your family. So I'm super lucky and that I have the privilege of like having a mom and a dad and a sister who support me and care for me, and were there during like the first few days of like my recovery, and the chosen family that I made alongside that. So that's why I think like throughout all of this and throughout all like that's to come for us, um, finding ways to build care networks, finding ways to find community, and if like people are struggling with that, creating spaces where folks can access the resources that they need.
Hey, this is Joel Simu, production assistant for Dem Bois Podcast. Our community keeps growing, and we'd love for you to be an even bigger part of it. Have a story that needs to be heard? A powerful moment you'd like to share? Well, we've expanded our newsletter to include more voices from our community, and yours could be next. We're looking for those meaningful snapshots of life, your personal stories and reflections that capture who we are. Think 100 to 200 words that pack a punch. Ready to share your story? Send your writing to me at joel@dembois.org. That's JOEL@dembois.org.
That leads me to ask you this question, because on this show all the time I say visibility equals possibility, and this show is to highlight and amplify the voices of trans men of color, right? But I want to say that maybe not everybody listening is a trans identified person, right? And doesn't understand our identities, or people say we chose this, right? That's not true, at least for me, right? This is just who I am. But I want you to tell like folks that are listening who may not be trans identified and are listening to this because they want to get an understanding. They want to learn from our stories. Like tell them a bit about your gender journey, and when was it when you discovered who you were as a person, and who you wanted to be as a person?
Yeah, definitely. So I'd say like honestly, like I can't even like pinpoint when I knew. I just feel like I always knew. Like since I was little, I always at first like like there was like terms like terms like tomboy, and I said that I was a tomboy, and I've like gone through like a lot of labels for myself like throughout all of my life, but I'd say like I've known since I was like 4 or 5. Like I remember the first time that I got like a boy's t-shirt. And I remember like the way that I remember exactly how the shirt looks. I remember how the graphic outline on the outside feels. I remember how it felt on my body, like oversized, and how like euphoric it made me feel, just presenting myself like in a masculine way. And I always felt that way throughout many different aspects of my life, and um, expressed myself that way throughout many aspects of my life. But yeah, so even it's ridiculous kind of like how we like assign gender to like different items. Like we assign gender to clothing, like even when I mean I don't eat McDonald's anymore. I'm boycotting, but when I was little, and my mom would take me to McDonald's, I would always ask for the boy toy, and we would pull up and the people in the drive-through would look very, very confused and sometimes be even reluctant to give me that. And I think it's really funny how we assign gender to these non-living items, that are just like forms of expressing ourselves. So like I've always like known, and I feel like I was really able to come into myself like when I went to college in Pittsburgh, and like I wasn't in an area that was surrounded by transphobic rhetoric, that wasn't surrounded by homophobic rhetoric, and just like a lot of like racism too, like in the Jersey Shore. And so like going to Pittsburgh, I was able to like find community. I met another South Asian queer trans man. We actually like ended up going to the same top surgeon like 2 months apart from each other. And I I finally like knew once I was with community like who I was. I started going by they them pronouns. And I always knew that I wanted to get top surgery because once like my breasts like developed, there was something that were like not just like a nuisance, but like they literally, I felt like the feeling of having them like toward me from the inside out. Like I would constantly, when I was wearing shirts, be tugging at them like very intensely to make sure they weren't showing, or to try to like attempt to make my shirt flat. And I would get a lot of comments from people around me being like, why do you always tug at your shirt? Why do you do this? But I couldn't really explain to them at the time like how I felt. Like I hated the feeling of my breasts being there. I felt like it was it was like not weighing me down physically, but like emotionally. And so yeah, once I got to college, and I finally just my junior year like came to the point where I decided that I wanted top surgery. I saw my first top surgery video, like reveal video, um when I was in middle school. And I remember like, yeah, the first video I saw, like this trans man, like seeing his chest for the first time, and like you could just like feel the joy, like like even if it's like you're watching through your phone, like you could feel it radiating towards you. And that was something that I just knew that I wanted I wanted that. And once I got top surgery, I I felt like home in my body, which is something that I never felt before. I ended up starting testosterone about 6 months later, like during the same year. And I started on low dose T for the first year and then switched to full dose. And uh, yeah, tea has also been extremely life-saving for me. And it's something that like I worry about too, is like like our access to gender affirming care and like how it's going to look within the next 4 years. And um, yeah, I just really, I look towards um, people like Chase, who was like the first trans lawyer to appear before the Supreme Court. Um, I want to continue and I like will continue to like fight for our access to gender affirming care. And like I think that a big part of like people understanding that is like hearing our stories, because our lived experiences not only liberate ourselves, but they liberate our communities as a whole.
Absolutely, they do. And it provides a sense of community, right? For folks who coming up underneath us to know that, you just expressed seeing a trans guy undress himself for the first time to see his scars and surgery results, right? It's like, how many few and far between were there? Like when I first transitioned 11 years ago, there wasn't hardly anybody online,
Right.
YouTube, and Instagram wasn't like it is now. And it was like, Facebook, like nobody was doing that. So just imagine 11 years from now, the visuals, the stories, all of these things that we will leave behind for other folks that are coming up to grab onto, right? And just to be validated of who they are and who they can be. And so thank you so
Right.
much for sharing that. And listening to you talk about the breasts, yeah, that was a nightmare for me. I'm just listening to you talk about it and how it felt like you tugging on your shirt. I used to wear 2, 3 shirts. I always had
Mm,
this thing where I never wanted my outside shirt to touch my skin because it just
right.
reminded me that they were there. So I would wear a tank top and then like 2 other shirts and then another shirt on the outside, right? I was always hot. but but I knew like it was covering me. And really quickly, I was reflecting maybe a couple weeks ago. I don't know how to swim. And so I've taken swimming lessons multiple times. I should know how to swim. And my story to people is always, I'm scared of water, which I am. That's one of my worst fears. But I had to really do some soul searching and was like, why did I not like to swim? And the reason why is because I did not want to get in water with breast. I did not want my
Mm,
shirt to be stuck to my skin. And when I get out, people can see that, oh, this person has breasts. That was
okay.
horrifying to me. And that's why I always stayed out of the water. And so just for folks listening, just to realize that just because we have these parts or born with these parts doesn't mean we associate ourselves with them. Some people do and some people don't, right? And
Right.
some people have breasts, but they want bigger breasts, right? Nobody says anything about that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But it's like, some parts of our bodies, we're just not happy with it. And it's okay, right? It is okay.
Hmm.
Some people get nose
Yeah.
jobs. Some people get chin jobs. Like we are free to do with what we want with our bodies to make us feel whole. And that's just it,
Right.
right?
Yeah, and that's what that's what I try to like say to like everyone too, like even folks who aren't trans, like gender affirming care is for everyone. Like you were just saying, like whether it be like a nose job, breast reduction, even, let me get the actual stat up here really quickly, sorry. Um, you know, puberty blockers and HRT, right? There's like the myth that they are dangerous and experimental, but in reality, they were approved by the FDA to treat precocious puberty in cisgender youth in 1993. So like it's interesting to also see like the attacks on gender affirming care, and how folks genuinely sometimes just like, yeah, they a lot of the times they'll generalize gender affirming care and just say that it only applies to trans people, when in reality, gender affirming care applies to everyone. It could even be like going to the barber. I consider that gender affirming care for me. It's my favorite form of self-care. I love going to the barber. Um, so yeah, I think that it's definitely something that like needs to be like discussed, like with trans folks and with folks who don't identify as trans, because especially with like the attacks that are happening and going to happen on gender affirming care. And I like how you also were talking about, thank you for like sharing your experience like 11 years ago, and like, yeah, not seeing a video, and like it really, it teaches like me too, like honestly, like the privilege I had like being in middle school, having access to social media, seeing a trans man see his chest for the first time. And I think that, yeah, like documenting our experiences, and it's not for everyone, but documenting our experiences, being proud of ourselves, showing those moments, yeah, like 11 years from now, like think of the impact that we're going to have on trans youth, yeah, when they see that, because I know the impact that it had on me. Like, all I could take myself back to my old townhouse with my mom, where I was sitting, the like literally the feeling of seeing that video for the first time.
And I tell people all the time to document it. Even if you aren't comfortable with it, you don't even have to share it. Document it for yourself. Because one day, 10, 11, 15, 20 years from now, you'd be like, damn, what did I used to look like? I literally don't remember what I used to look like sometimes, or how my voice sounded. And for folks who want to know how my voice sounds, you can actually go to the very first episode, the intro to this podcast, season 1, and it's a little blurb of what I used to sound like pre-T, but I say do it for yourself, because you might want to look at it one day. I hated my breasts. I hated them. I hated them. It's just a strong hate. My mother used to always teach me, don't say hate, but I hated them. And
Mhm.
what I did the night before my top surgery, I took a picture of them. That picture was hidden
Right.
for years. I didn't want nobody to see. I didn't want to look at them because they were ugly. But then now I'm like, sometimes I have those moments of like, damn, let me look. Let me see what it looked like. Or now I'm even okay with showing people, oh, you want to see what my chest used to look like? Oh, look, look, look. They was ugly, huh? Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like
Right,
really,
because yeah, I know it branches from like that like excitement of like finally, like I finally feel home in my body. Like this is what I used to experience, like it's crazy to see like how far you could come, and like how far you've come on your journey.
yeah, absolutely. And 11 years ago, I would have never showed anybody, or I would have never even just like, being physically active with somebody. I always had my shirt on because I never wanted to take it off. So I always walked around the house with a shirt on. I never looked at myself in the mirror, and so all of these things, right? And so it definitely shifts. And so for people listening to know that, like, we know what it is that we want. Youth know what it
Right.
is that they want. It's,
Right.
it's so easy to ask a child what they want to eat for dinner, or they don't want
Mhm.
crust on their sandwiches, or they want to wear their jersey every day of the week to school, right? But we don't take them seriously when they say, hey, to their caregiver, this is who I am. Like, right. And so it's
Right.
just to really listen to us and our stories and what we have to say. And that's the best thing that you can do, is just to listen. You don't even have to
Right.
comment. You don't have to say anything. Just listen. And so,
Yeah, there's a lot of power in listening, and like in listening, like even uplifting like that person's experience, like it definitely goes a long way.
Absolutely. And so you are a queer content creator and advocate. So how do those two things influence each other?
Yeah, so I do a couple of things. So I actually like I volunteer with the transgender advocacy and care team, which is like a nationwide team that provides three free peer counseling sessions by trans folks for trans folks. I do that, and then I also have just got on the board of directors for Trans Lifeline. And alongside that, I created my account, the T Advocate, which is like really where like I bring, yeah, like stories, education, and uplift them like through content. And I think there's like a lot of power and power in it. I've been able to specifically, like my favorite thing to uplift through content is trans history because, like we were just saying, like us seeing the experiences of trans elders had a big impact on us, and our experiences, our us documenting our experiences could have a big impact on future generations of trans people. And I think that like learning about being trans, it's existed for centuries outside of like the Western context on a global scale. So I love to like specifically on like my account like speak about different trans identities, those who identify as their gender, two spirit, also like talking about hijras in India, and there's like you could literally go on and on. There's actually a map online if you look up like worldwide trans identity map. It's like there's a PBS link and it links you to the map, and there's a Google map that it shows you the entire world, and you could just pinpoint throughout the entire world like trans communities, like how gender has been like viewed and treated in those cultures, and the history of trans people existing. So like just to see that and like uplift that through content, I think it's really important because like our history has been like historically erased, and it's important to like uplift it and preserve our history, because our history has paved the way for our collective liberation. So that's what I really like to uplift on my throughout my content. I think there's like a lot of power in just learning, like we were discussing. And I also do like content. Like I did a 20-minute piece, a video piece that was focusing on uh, South Asian trans masc lived experiences, and we had like a few South Asian trans masc folks on the video, and we had a discussion on just how what our experiences have been like, growing up with a South Asian family, how our experiences are trying to find community, and that I think it got a lot of engagement, and I think that um, it was a really powerful way to like uplift our existence and like our lived experiences.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. So, from whatever platform that you're listening to this week's episode on, please be sure to give us 5 stars. And if there's something within this episode, whether it's the guest or something that I said, or maybe the guest said that resonated with you, be sure to go and leave us a comment on this episode or leave us a comment on the show. So what happens is, if you feel like it resonated with you, I'm sure there's someone out there who hasn't even heard about Dem Bois Podcast. It may resonate with them, and actually it could save someone's life. to hear these stories, right? Because we believe that visibility equals possibility, but there isn't any possibility if we aren't visible. So if you go and leave comments, the more comments you leave, the more 5-star ratings you leave, then this podcast will be available to more folks to see. And so we want to be visible. We want to be out there. We want folks to know that we're here and that our stories are out there for them to listen to. And so if you could do me a favor, please go ahead and rate the show or leave a comment. Until next time, see you on the next episode. You know, you were talking about liberation, and I want to ask you something, because I feel that something that you mentioned in your bio was very interesting to me, and I wanted you to speak a little bit more on it. But you wrote that you feel by discussing and creating discourse in an intersectional way rather than a white cis rooted way, we can not only liberate ourselves but liberate our communities. That blew me away, actually, right? Because we do focus so much on white cis rooted things in everything, right? Because obviously, right, that has was destroyed a lot of things, right? And it's responsible for all of the erasure. And I want you to speak on that a little bit. Like, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, like to me, like I feel like there are so many like intersections like with gender and race, sexuality, race and gender. And for me, I didn't learn about trans folks in a non white cis-rooted way until I was in college, and I had a professor who was a gay Indian man, and all of my gender, women's, and sexuality studies professors were all white women. I really enjoyed the courses, but there honestly like was a limit to what I was learning. I was only learning about gender in um, in a Western context, but also like, yeah, we weren't uplifting really or learning much about how indigenous folks and their gender existed over here like before colonization. So once like I had that professor, and like I also just learned I once I learned that trans people have existed in India, like my mind was blown, because I genuinely thought that we not many of us existed, honestly. I genuinely thought that maybe in America, trans people are the only, like, this is the only place that trans people are accepted. But once I realized, wait, our like Western systems are really one of the only systems in the world that have this very binary system, man or woman, male or female. So many different cultures have third genders, fourth genders. It completely like liberated me in the sense where I I was finally able to connect like different parts of my identity to myself. And I was finally able to accept and love myself, all parts of myself and all parts of my identity. And that's like why I, the education that I try to put out, I try to make sure that it's not in a white cis rooted way perspective, and rather make sure that we're looking at trans history and trans experiences through an intersectional lens, looking at their experiences, you know, being trans and seeing its connection also to a person's culture or a person's race. I think there's a lot of power in that. And the more that we discuss it, the more that we uplift it, the more that our communities will be uplifted as a whole. Especially when we're talking about Black trans women, QT BIPOC, as a whole. Um, yeah, I think there's a lot of power in that.
I was thinking, So with this upcoming or this presidential that we're going to be inheriting for the next 4 years, his idea, one of his, I don't know for many folks who maybe even visited his website or not. I was just curious, so I did. But when he has like these short little videos on there of, his concepts of plans that he wants to he wants to do. But one of the things he was saying that gender and trans identities was something that the Democrats came up with a few years ago. And to me, I was like, that is the most, I don't like to say the word ignorant. I really don't like that word. I feel like there should be another word I can use, but that is the most, I must just say silly. That is the silliest shit I ever heard. Right. But just think about how many folks believe that. And so they will sit here and tell you and I that we made some shit up and we just, I don't know, magically appeared, right? And we just started to exist a few years ago. Well, that don't make sense, right? Because I transitioned 11 years ago. So that couldn't have been, that's more than a couple of years, right? And so it's like, that makes no sense. But we have folks that believe this rhetoric and it's dangerous, right? And it's very important, I think, that people do their own damn research. Do your own research and learn. Don't believe what somebody else is telling you. That goes for anything. That's religion to me. This is my opinion. Religion, whatever. And don't believe if you're a Christian and you have a Bible, don't believe everything that the preacher says. Go and read it and find out for yourself. Learn and do your own research for yourself, right? Because there's something that one person can't tell you everything, right? And one person may only tell you their side of the things that they want you to hear. And so it's this idea that, trans folks have existed well over just a couple of years ago, right? And they've been in indigenous communities and all of these communities where they existed prior to just a few years ago. And so that's very important to know that, right? And to know that we're here, but we're standing on the backs of others who came before us. So.
Yeah. And I completely agree with that. And like, even like as an example, right? Like we have Francis Thompson, who was alive from 1840 to 1876, and Francis was a formerly enslaved Black woman, and was a prominent advocate for bodily autonomy, and was actually credited as the first openly Black trans woman to testify in front of U.S. Congress for the congressional committee that investigated the Memphis riots of 1866. We're talking all the way back in 1866, the first openly Black trans woman who appeared before Congress. Just like learning that and like hearing that experience, it's proof that we have always existed. We've existed for a long time. So like you were saying, like just seeking out like your own education too. Like, yeah, like there's a lot of spaces like my space, like I'm always happy to provide that education. But also I think that a lot of the times like people tend to like rely if like they only know like one or two trans people in their life, like they will tend to like rely on that trans person for all of their education. But that person isn't the encyclopedia of trans lived experiences. Everyone has like their own unique experience. Even the idea that I think there's like the view that, and this is being like spit out a lot with the administration coming in, that in order to be trans you have to like medically transition. Like that's not the case, and that's not everyone's trans experience. You don't have to get top or bottom surgery to be trans. You are valid in your existence and your identity, regardless of whether you want to medically transition or not. So yeah, I think like just seeking out your own information, like learning history and like interpreting it from your own perspective too. Like it's really important and like vital to like our survival and existence and visibility.
You literally took the words out of my mouth. I was gonna say it's imperative to our existence, right? That you just said everything I was thinking. Like it is very important, and it's very important to learn about yourself and the folks that come before you, and not make people think that you are not you know your existence, you are valid in who you are, right? And so that was beautifully said. And so you do a lot of things, right? You work at a just as a justice organizer. You're on the board for the Trans Lifeline. You're a gender advocate with the Trans Advocacy and Care Team, and you're the creator of T Advocate. If you could pick one thing to tell folks about, which one of those things would it be?
Um, it would be like the tea advocate, honestly. Like just the I like love that space, like the space that yeah, I created, but like so many people are a part of this space now too, where I can just share education, research, our history, our lived experiences. Like that's what my passion is. And I've always known like that my passion is like advocating for and organizing around like LGBTQIA rights. I remember when I was like little, I used to have fights with like my dad because he would say money over happiness, and I would say, No, happiness over money. You need money to survive." But I know that what I want to do is I want to be like I would say since I was little, I want to be an activist. I want to help people. And even, before I came out as queer, I would be asked, why do you always talk about LGBTQIA rights? And why do you think I'm talking about it, right? But like it's always been a huge passion of mine. So like like creating the space like has been something that I'm like really, really proud of and really happy about. And like I want to like continue to expand on it. And like, just help any trans person that I can and provide a safe space to like any trans person that I can.
Hey y'all, Pink Lady here. I am the producer for Dem Bois Podcast, and I am so excited to tell you about my production company, Pink Lady Productions. We collaborate with creatives like you who are driven to share your message by launching your podcast from A to Z and coaching you through the process. To learn more about our services, check out our website at pinkladyprod.com. That's PINKLADYPROD.com.
So how can folks listen and find the Tea Advocate?
Yeah, so you could go on Instagram and just search up at the Tea Advocate. I'm also like in the process of like making a website for it now too. So I want to like make it easier for folks to like access like what specific information they're looking for, because I made both like a nationwide like toolkit of resources, and I made like a New Jersey specific toolkit resource guide that includes like mental health, relocation services. So I have like things like resources on my account, and then I also have education. I also have like talking about history. So I'm creating a website as well. So stay tuned. And that would be called the Tadvocate dot org or .com.
Nice. So what's next for you?
Yeah, honestly, I really am like looking forward to, I just joined like the board of Trans Lifeline, so I'm really like excited about like that step in my career. This year I also just am really focusing on caring for myself, like caring for um my transness, and like being more involved with community, like especially being in New York City. I think like when the pandemic happened, like I was like a very extroverted person, and I got into the habit of just wanting to stay inside all the time, which isn't a bad thing, but I want to like get out and be involved with community more, whether that be like going to Outbox and going to a LGBTQ boxing class, or like I want to organize in New York with orgs like ACT UP. I want to organize with activists like Queen Jean. Those are like big goals of mine. And I want to just expand my like focus like has definitely been like more New Jersey based, and I want I've been seeing a lot of violence against trans folks in New York City. Like, there was something that happened, I'm sure you heard about it, like the Delhi incident. And I want to do anything I can to protect this trans woman. So yeah, just a lot of organizing and a lot of caring for myself and my identity.
Definitely a lot of caring for yourself, right? And I say put that one first, because if we don't care for ourselves, we can't pour from an empty cup. So you can't help as many trans folks as you can if you're not filling your own cup. And so I also want to ask you, like, do you have any advice for us? These next 4 years is going to be hectic as hell with this Trump presidency. Do you have any ways, with all the anti-trans rhetoric and violence and all of this stuff, how can we take action during the next 4 years?
Yeah, so I definitely say like huge ways to take action are testify at like your local board of ed meetings, testify at your local state house hearings if you hear something going on. Even if you need help, you could reach out to like a local nonprofit, and I'm sure that they will be doing lobbying like efforts. I think that there's like a lot of power in showing up, and especially like people in power, we're seeing that they are threatening us a lot, but they are supposed to be for the people. So they do need to listen to the people. So I think there's power in showing up. Also, like if you don't feel comfortable, like physically showing up and don't feel safe, which like I completely like hear and understand that, there's different ways to like be active. You could write a letter to the editor. So like writing like a thought piece on like your lived experience and why, like including a call to action, like why protecting access to HRT is important, or why uplifting trans experiences is important. Writing a letter to editor, you submit that to any local newspaper. And yeah, finally, I'd say just it's really important, like throughout taking action, and getting involved, to just care for yourself. Like you were just telling me before I do all of this, like I need to care for myself as well. Give yourself some like grace. There's a lot going on in the world, but like we aren't alone. Like we have a beautiful, loving community. And I think sticking with that community, like trying to seek out that community, is really essential throughout the next 4 years. And if anyone's ever having trouble like finding that and like need help, I'm always happy to help. Like I am connected to like a lot of different statewide resources. So people could always like contact me through my T Advocate account as well. And I'm happy to help folks find community or resources near them.
Thank you so much for being a resource. And so folks listening need that. Just take advantage of that, right? When somebody's putting themselves out there and say, hey, use me as a resource. I appreciate that. Thank you for that. Yes. And so this is the part of the show where I love to ask my guests a random question. I have a list of questions that's continuously growing. And so now I have 66 questions. And so I just want you to pick a number between 1 and 66, and I'll ask you that question. But before you pick a number, one thing that I'm doing differently now is I want you to take one and leave one. So once you answer your question, leave one for a future guest to answer.
Okay. All right. I will pick number 47.
Number 47 was actually left behind by a past guest, Dr. Liam Johnson. And so his question was, why is masculinity the definition of division in the trans mass community?
That's a really good question. Why is masculinity the definition of division in the trans mass community? I think that honestly, it can cause division in the trans masc community in the sense where there like are a lot of stereotypes when it comes to being masculine and what it feels to experience masculinity. And I think like the division where I've seen division in the trans masc community is like kind of like taking on and absorbing like those specific stigmas or stereotypes like you're on HRT now, you should be going to the gym, you should be bulking up. Different like expectations that are put on trans mass folks. I think are like honestly, yeah, like it causes more division. And I think the expectation like that, oh, we have to look a certain way after we take tea, or we should um be getting top surgery or etc. Like that's not all of our experiences. And I think that we should just celebrate everyone's everyone's like bodies, and like masculinity is not defined by like how your body looks or like even how you dress. I think that like it's yeah, it's dangerous to place judgments on other people's bodies. And I think I read one of my favorite books is The Body Is Not an Apology by Sonia Renee Taylor. And Sonia says in that book that people's like reflections, people's judgments on other people's bodies are merely a reflection of like how they feel about themselves. And so like I definitely think that while you know, we all experience masculinity in a different way, um, it's important to see how we take in images of masculinity and representations of masculinity, and how we place those expectations on others throughout the community. I think it just further like splits our community. I've heard from like for trans mass siblings. I've seen people judge other people for getting the scars, tattoos over their scars, or not choosing to get nipple grafts after top surgery. And it's upsetting to me because I think as trans people we should be celebrating each other's expression and bodies and experiences. So that's how I think masculinity can cause division in the trans mass community, is placing like a lot of expectation and less room for acceptance of different forms of masculinity.
Well said. You were the first person to answer that question, and I don't know what could follow that. That was just brilliant. Thank you so much for answering that question. I hope
Thank
Dr.
you.
Liam Johnson taps in so that he can hear the answer to his question. So I would love for you to leave a question for other folks to answer in the future.
Yeah, definitely. What forms of community care can have like the biggest impact on your life within the next few years throughout our upcoming obstacles and further division in the United States? As organizers and as advocates, like, yeah, like we know a lot of ways to take action, but like I don't think it's a fair for us to assume also like what forms of community people need, or what resources people need. So yeah, I'd love to hear exactly what forms of care people need and are seeking out.
Brilliant. So what forms of community care can have the biggest impact on your life over the next few years and in the future?